So with Jeff Ulbrich returning, I wanted to do something a little bit different. At this point, I think most of us are hip to the broad idea of what Jeff Ulbrich wants to be. Even when he came here last year, we all knew he was going to be heavy on cover three, quarters, man coverage, all of that. But knowing the coverage menu and also understanding the intent behind it are two different things. Just saying they run cover three doesn't really tell you anything because a lot of teams run a cover three. Matter of fact, cover three is the most common coverage called in football today. The real question is, why are we calling it? What are they trying to take away? And where are they trying to force the ball? So what I wanted to do is I wanted to study this defense. What does this defense look like when it's working? And when teams have success against the defense, are they just out executing Atlanta or are they attacking something structurally? And so I picked out a handful of games where Atlanta was successful in areas of coverage and run defense, and also where they got exploited in coverage and the run defense. And I didn't want to come away with some answer that's lazy, like, oh, this scheme is good, this scheme is bad, somewhere in between, because football is usually not that simple. In fact, it's always not that simple. Every defense is going to have questions and answers, and you can exploit any defense because no defense is perfect unless you're talking about man coverage and you just have the guys that can play man coverage. And some of the broad themes that I came away from this, especially like in the coverage and the run game, is that Atlanta wants to control the picture. Obviously, every defense wants to do that, but when Atlanta does it, the defense makes a lot of sense. And when it gets stressed out, they have a very small margin for error. So we're going to start with the coverage, and then we're going to segment into the run game. And by the end, we should be able to have a better understanding of what Ulbrich is trying to build, why it can work, and what teams are trying to do to attack it, and what they're going to do to attack it, matter of fact. So let's start with coverage, because this is where I think the identity shows up the clearest. And the question really isn't just, is it cover three? Is it cover four? Is it man coverage? Obviously that matters, but that's not the full story. And just for the sake of it, I'm going to show you the full coverage breakdown of what we run and how many times we ran it, so you can see the coverage tendencies that the Atlanta Falcons love to do. And before I went into watching film, this is what I came to first, because I wanted to see what exactly was their identity this year, because even Jeff Ulbrich said they were mixing in some of the stuff that Raheem Morris did in 2024 with what he likes to do and what he did in New York. So I wanted to get a clear picture of what that was. And relative to what last year showed us, there was a steep decline in quarter half, or cover six. We didn't use a lot of nickel 8 or cover 8, cover 9, whatever you want to call it. We were a much more aggressive defense, and that's what I expected, where we played a lot of cover 3, cover 1, quarters, all of that. But once again, just knowing the coverages aren't the full story. And then getting into the actual film work, Atlanta is obviously a multiple defense. Jeff Ulbrich said he wanted to be multiple, but that's not random. The point of being multiple is not just doing a bunch of stuff to do a bunch of stuff. Okay, the point is making different calls look related. They want the quarterback to see one thing before the snap. They didn't have to confirm it after the snap. They can show a split safety look and rotate. They can make it look like man, look like zone. They can make match coverage look similar to a basic cover 3 shell. And talking about cover 3, they didn't just run typical cover 3. They ran like at least 3 or 4 variations. They ran cover 3 sky. They ran cover 3 buzz, cover 3 match. But the goal was to keep the quarterback from being completely sure what he was getting before the ball was snapped. The most common thing you see in the NFL is teams using a field and boundary defense. And what that means is your guys are lining up relative to where the ball is spotted on the hash. So for example, if the ball is on the left hash, AJ will be on the left side of the field into the short side because he is the boundary corner. Mike Hughes will be opposite of that, obviously, and he's the field corner. And so if it was vice versa, if the ball is on the right hash, AJ's on the right, Mike's on the left. And so you see in this example that the ball is on the left hash, and there you see AJ, and there you see Caden Ellis. You know, those two guys are typically on the same side unless the motion were to change the picture, all right? And this is the same we could say about D. Alford and Devon Diablo. They always are going to put the nickel to the field, okay? Jesse and Xavier, they really don't matter, because Jeff Ulbrich even said, hey, at some point in the season, they were just saying, Jesse, you got left, Xavier, you got right, and let's rock out. Okay, that's pretty much what the defense is when you talk about alignment. So that's really where the coverage starts, is how guys are aligned. And for me, when I was watching this film, the overhang defenders were a huge piece of this because they like to mix in different rules. Sometimes they're living in a collide and carry world where you're collisioning the release and you're relating to the receiver and carry him to the safety. And then other times they're in an overlap world where if the receiver is stemming vertical, you're going to just still get to your zone drop. Me personally, I'm more of a collide and carry because it limits the passing window the quarterback has, but that's not really up for me. And I can see why they want to mix in overlap and collide and carry. One is to make the quarterback hold the ball longer, and the other one, they're just closing space and getting into the passing windows that the offense may be trying to attack. So once again, that difference matters because it changes what the quarterback is looking at. One snap, overhang is collisioning and carrying the receiver down the field, and then the next play he's overlapping into a passing window that he thought was there and it wasn't there. And that's how D'Alford got his interception against Tampa Bay. He overlapped into that curl window, picked the ball off. So the shell might look similar, but the underneath rules are going to change from down to down. And then once you add our safeties into it, that's when Atlanta really gets creative. So first of all, I want to talk about how aggressive our safeties are. We already know what Jessie Bates and Xavier Watts is about. Probably be the best, in my opinion, at least the best safety tandem in football right now, because they play the same. They can do pretty much everything. Right? They can play man, they can play zone, they can play in the post, they can play in the slot, they can play in the deep half. They can do everything on the football field. And they can come down and make a tackle in the run game too. And it's just a beauty watching them communicate and play on the back end because they shut off so many passes deep that you don't even recognize it until you watch the film the day after the game. So the Saints, they're going to be running play action dagger. So we're going to get the play action fake and we're going to get the dagger concept up top. But let's look at how this happens. Xavier Watts is going to rotate to the middle of the field, and look at how Jessie is not even worrying about the clear out routing. He's immediately running to the middle of the field to try to shut off that dig route. Okay, now the pass rush gets home, okay, and it affects Tyler Shough, but you can see he was looking in that direction to throw that, and Jessie Bates was gonna probably pick that off because he was heading right over there to it. And the other thing that I do want to talk about is their ability to disguise stuff. Jeff Ulbrich understands how much range that our safeties have, so he weaponizes that a lot in terms of hold your disguise just long enough and get to where you go. He trusts their ability to cover ground, and I love the way they disguise their looks. This one right here is probably my favorite play. So you see they start out in a 2-high shell with Xavier and Jessie back deep. But then Jessie is going to rotate to the post and Xavier's going to go right down to the line of scrimmage, acting like he's going to blitz. And at the same time, you have Jawan Johnson motioning over. And at the very last moment, Devon Diablo runs out there with him. So now you know it's man coverage. But guess what? Tyler Shough is probably thinking there's going to be a free safety blitz. And that's not exactly what's happening, because once this ball is snapped, Jessie is going to run down to the hole, try to rob any crosser, and you see Xavier is already back in the post at a split second. Like, this stuff right here, it really cannot be replicated. A lot of safeties can't do this, okay? This is some good stuff from us. And that's why safety range matters so much in this defense, because if you want to disguise and rotate late, you need safeties who can cover ground. And if they can't, that disguise becomes a liability, because now you're out of position and now there's a 30-yard gain because you were supposed to be there, but you weren't fast enough to get there. But if they can, you can hold that shell longer, rotate later, and still be able to get to where you need to be. And when you look at Tyler Shough's passing numbers, a lot of it really wasn't impressive. They only had 1 or 2 explosive plays, but everything you see was low and outside. And that's where we were trying to force the ball. The Saints were really heavy on quick game. They threw it short a lot, like I said. 20 of their 43 passes were 6 air yards to field, which means he was not throwing the ball down the field a lot at all. They really weren't turning those throws into explosive yards after catch chances, all right? They were taking the ball where Atlanta was willing to send it. And most of the time, that's what good coverage does. Good coverage isn't always forcing an incompletion or getting an interception. Sometimes it's forcing a quarterback to take the least dangerous answer. It may be a completed pass and they may get 3 to 4 yards, but they aren't getting much more than that, and you're forcing them to be patient and drive the ball down the field. Now, that may sound like a bend don't break defense, but it's really not, because we are playing a lot of man coverage. We're still getting up there at the line and pressing them, okay? And also, we were one of the most blitz happiest teams. So when you pair that aggression with a lot of blitzing, that's how we got 57 sacks. It wasn't just, oh, we're just blitzing the hell out of quarterbacks. No, we're going to be aggressive on the back end, and we're also going to be aggressive up front. And when you get in those passing situations, we're going to come light you up. And somebody's going to get a one-on-one. Somebody's going to come free, untouched, and that's how we get sacks. So now the next question is, what happens when an offense does not just accept those type of throws? And that's where the bad game gets interesting. And so we're going to go a week earlier to the Carolina game where Bryce Young had 448 yards against us. And I think this part is important. Carolina didn't come in with some completely different game plan answers than the Saints did. Both teams were willing to throw short. Both teams used quick game. Like I said before, New Orleans was accepting those underneath throws and Carolina was engineering them. Carolina used a lot of empty. They used a lot of motion, and not just any exit motion or a short motion. They motioned across the formation a lot to change the count for the defense. Okay, they use a lot of crossing routes, a lot of horizontal attack, and they use it to create yards after catch opportunities and calculated vertical shots off of those horizontal stresses. And they use that short game as an actual weapon than just a concession. So as you can see, everybody's walked up on the line of scrimmage early in the down, and you see they have Rico Dowdle in like an up back position ready to pick up any blitzer. Okay, but what we're going to do, we're going to drop out into a cover 3, just a simple spot drop cover 3. But one thing is different. Jesse Bates is watching Bryce Young the entire way, and they do a lot of this where they run these in breakers with Tetero McMillan, but they were playing into Jesse Bates' aggressiveness the entire way because he was looking at Tetero McMillan the entire way. But guess what? He threw it right behind him to Jalen Coker, and now it's an explosive gain on a 3rd and short. They were using Jesse Bates' best trait against him. So yes, I did say our safeties were aggressive, but that's also football. Your best trait can become something the offense tries to weaponize against you, and you see that from early in the game on the first drive. But I think the real stress point was our apex / overhang defenders. They were using flat routes, out routes, crossers, quick game, moving the launch point, all these different things to get these guys to go east and west, north and south. And whenever they did, they just did the opposite. We're going to come back to this play that I just showed earlier, but as you can see, Jalen Coker's motioning over, and he's going to come to a shuffle. They're going to snap the ball, and he gets picked by AJ and Tetero McMillan. Those type of things going east and west, they were stressing our defense the entire game doing that. Getting our guys to widen out and throw these short, small, intermediate crossers that really pretty much worked the entire game. That was the major difference because they were able to turn those short throws into yak, and they were able to get extra yards. And that's what happened. You know, they got the extra yards, got the explosives that Saints just didn't get. A lot of it was catch and tackle, but with Carolina in that game, 245 of those 448 yards were after the catch. That's over half of those yards. So we weren't able to rally after the catch was made. So going back to the comparison, those short throws, that means Atlanta was winning the play. But against Carolina, those short throws meant Carolina was winning. We couldn't tackle in space. And then once Atlanta had to defend horizontally, Carolina could take their vertical shots because we were going east and west the entire game. That's going to leave a guy to leak, go down the field and get a 30-yard gain out of nowhere. And this is probably the best example right here. So they're in a heavy set, 13 personnel with their blocking receiver in as the only receiver. They're going to fake the Y zone to the left, and they're going to set up this slip screen for the running back. But as you can see, number 84, Mitchell Evans, I think that's his name, he's just wide open, unaccounted for down the field. And they went east and west all game, and nobody's covering north and south now. And now they're down in the red zone because they did not want to account for him. Now, this is a good play, but at the same time, you see how that was able to happen because they were going east and west the entire game. So again, the difference wasn't that Carolina just completely had this different mad scientist approach to cook our defense. The difference was Carolina was just way more deliberate and calculated with the same general answers. So let's transition to the run game because I think that same idea shows up there too. With the run defense, I'll be honest, you know, everybody knows that our run defense is not good. We really couldn't get any consistent traction in that area of defense. So I'm not going to sit up here and try to make it like, oh, well, we could do this, but I'm going to ask the better question. All right, what is this run defense trying to be? And why did it still break down? Because there was a plan. The run defense isn't just bad because you have no plan. The plan was clear. You know, they want to be a penetration first defense. They want to have multiple fronts in their menu. They want to stem late, change surfaces, knock the running back off track, string these runs out, and use our speed to route to the ball. But that style has trade-offs. But the general idea I came away with is they can be manipulated, okay? And you're going to see why. Because it's just kind of crazy to me how when I watched the Colts run for 300 on us and I go back and watch the tape, I was just like, wow, they were literally getting us into what they wanted to be in and then they just abused us. Okay, but let's cover the positive side of this first. So when I say penetration first, I don't mean everybody's just flying upfield trying to get tackles for loss. But the point of them flying upfield and getting that penetration is to disrupt the running back's track, because if you make the back stop his feet in the backfield, make him bounce, try to string the run out, and they make the run hit somewhere else where it wasn't, designed to hit, that's the good version. Okay, Atlanta can use these late stems into 5-man surfaces. They can close both B gaps, get into that odd space, and they can match the base personnel with heavier personnel too. Although I will say is we didn't do a lot of that. We were pretty much a static front. What you see is what you got. But as I watched more of it, and we did, do stunts and blitzes against the run, I was wondering why didn't we do that more? We have the guys to do it. It's just we tried to have these guys do something too much of what wasn't working. So what they wanted to do structurally, they wanted to build a wall, force the running back to declare, and let the defense rally. Okay, that may sound like coach speak. That's really what it was. And when it works, it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a boring 2-yard gain, but those boring 2-yard gains are always wins, because now you're in an obvious passing situation. Personnel wise, if you want to be multiple, you have to have those defensive ends who are able to align in different spots. That means you have to be able to play 5, you have to be able to play 9. Then you also got to come all the way in and play 3 or 4 eye. That gives us the flexibility to do all of that, but it also means those same guys have to survive different jobs. One snap they're playing like edges, the next snap they're reduced inside against guards and tackles, and that's really hard to do. And that's a perfect transition to where offenses started to attack us. And then you get into the heavier run game attacks, which is my personal favorite thing that offenses did to take advantage of us. I'm not saying that I enjoyed it, but that was a real moment of wait, that's a very good answer against this defense. So the things that other teams did was they added body to the surface of the line of scrimmage and triggered Atlanta's odd front adjustments. Okay, so teams would normally add body to the surface of the line or put guys in the box, if that makes sense. So if they were under center, they would probably use a fullback in the I form or an offset I. They'd be in a wing formation, or they'd be in an ace formation with tight ends on both sides of the line. That would trigger Atlanta to get into an odd front, with Caden Ellis being the guy that walks down. And that's something that I noticed right away when I started watching him, is that when they added body to that surface, that's what you're going to get. They want to really be able to control where the run is going. And on the same hand, doing that, it will create matchups that the offense will want. If that puts a smaller defensive end, he's going to reduce inside. Now offenses can double team him with guards and tackles, maybe tackles and tight ends. Same difference, you get the point. And that's not some complicated scheme answer, but it's also effective. If you want to be multiple, that's fine, but can those multiple bodies hold up when the offense runs right at them? And we get into the run that I think hurts us the most. That's duo. And that's such a good test against this front, because duo is not asking you to chase or do anything crazy. It's asking you to anchor. It's vertical, it's the double teams, and the offense is saying you can be quick and you can be multiple, but can you sit there and not get moved? And when you have a bunch of guys that are under 300 pounds and playing defensive tackle, it looks really ugly. We don't have Aaron Donalds on this line where they can be 280 and still hold up in the run. They can 2-gap, 1-gap, do whatever. We don't have those, okay? And so even if teams try to run outside, that's what Atlanta wanted them to do. It was a hit and miss in terms of results. Sometimes you may get a 10-yard gain. The other time you may get a tackle in the backfield, okay? And that's what was happening against the Colts. They ran for 300 yards, but it's not like they were just allowing everything, because they did have some moments where they fought back and they made it a tough run, all right? But overall, what really killed them is, like I said before, they were getting guys to reduce inside and they were just overwhelming them at the point of attack. And it goes back to a point that I've been talking about literally for like a year now, okay? Run defense is a team thing, and this is why the run defense was so inconsistent. One rep, the edge was set correctly, the guys got upfield and disrupted the running back, and the defense rallies. But the next rep, one piece is off and the whole offense is looking way better because of that one mistake. So I don't think it was just one thing you can point out. I think it was a combination of things, right? Atlanta wanted to be disruptive, but they're not always heavy. They want to be multiple, but that hybrid body is tough in interior fits. When Atlanta was able to control the surface, the run defense had answers. They could stem late, close gaps, build edges, and force the back to declare and rally. But if the offense changed the surface, added gaps, used motion, created double teams, and forced those smaller bodies to hold up against two guys, the answers got harder. So the outlook really isn't simply this defense will be good or this defense will be bad. It's about whether the Falcons can live with those trade-offs. You know, can the overhangs hold up in conflict? Can the safeties keep closing windows without getting manipulated to death? Can the pass rush get there when the coverage forces a hesitation? Can the linebackers fit with a moving front? It's a lot of moving pieces that have to go right for us. And for most part, it did, because teams did not know how to attack us. But when teams figured it out, they were able to have some success, and then we were able to refigure it out later on in the season. Because when it's working, you can see the vision. And I think that's going to be the battle this upcoming season for the defense. Not just what Ulbrich calls, but whether the Falcons can execute those rules, communicate the adjustments, and hold up when the offense starts attacking with those answers that we talked about. Okay, so if you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more. I enjoy doing this. It's really fun to make. But anyways, if you guys did enjoy it, be sure to like and subscribe for more. More coming at y'all in the future. See you guys in the next episode. Goodbye.